Before we dive in, full transparency, this video is not sponsored by Sigma Computing, Snowflake, or any other company mentioned. My goal is to provide an unbiased, in-depth analysis based on my own research and years of experience in the data world. The opinions expressed here are entirely my own, and the only goal is to give you the unvarnished truth. What if I told you that the most powerful and widely used data tool on the planet isn't Tableau, it isn't Power BI, and it definitely isn't some complex Python library? It's Microsoft Excel. And that single fact is costing American companies billions of dollars in lost productivity and missed opportunities every single year. Think about it. How does data actually move through your organization? It probably looks something like this. A business user, let's call her Sarah from marketing, has a simple question. She needs to know which campaigns are driving the most valuable customers. So she files a ticket. Days, maybe even a week later, a data analyst, let's call him Mike, finally gets to it. He writes some complex SQL code, pulls the data from the company's massive database, and sends Sarah a CSV file. What does Sarah do? She immediately opens it in Excel or Google Sheets. But the data isn't quite right. She needs to filter by region, but that wasn't in the original request. So she goes back to Mike. Another ticket. More waiting. This painful slow motion back and forth continues until Sarah, frustrated and on a deadline, just gives up and makes a decision based on her gut, or worse, on a stale, outdated version of the data. This isn't a hypothetical scenario. This is the daily reality in thousands of companies across the country. We've spent a decade and millions of dollars building these incredible, powerful cloud data warehouses, systems like Snowflake, BigQuery, and Redshift, that can process petabytes of information in seconds. We've built a superhighway for data. But the last mile, the most critical part of the journey from that raw data to an actual business decision, is still a clogged, bumpy dirt road paved with spreadsheets and email attachments. The big business intelligence platforms, the Tableaus and the Power BIs, were supposed to fix this. They promised a new world of self-service analytics. They gave us beautiful dashboards and drag-and-drop interfaces. And for a while it was a huge leap forward. But the fundamental problem never really went away. For any truly new question, any ad hoc exploration, you still had to go back to the data team. The self-service dream was really just self-service for a pre-approved, pre-canned set of questions. Anything outside those lines, and you were right back in the ticket queue. The bottleneck just moved. And business users, the people who know the business best, were still kept at arm's length from the live data, forced to work with static exports in the one tool they truly understood, the spreadsheet. Now imagine a different world. Imagine if Sarah from marketing could, without writing a single line of code, securely and directly access the company's entire marketing dataset, live from the cloud warehouse. Imagine if she could use an interface as familiar and intuitive as a spreadsheet to pivot, filter, group, and analyze billions of rows of data in real time. Imagine she could join that data with sales data, run her own what-if scenarios, build her own dashboards, and find the answer to her question in minutes, not weeks. No tickets, no exports, no waiting for Mike. That is the audacious, world-changing promise of a company called Sigma Computing. And that's the billion-dollar question we are going to answer today. Is this just slick marketing hype? Or is Sigma's spreadsheet-like interface, built directly on top of the cloud data warehouse, genuinely the future of data analytics? Is this the tool that finally truly democratizes data and makes every employee a data analyst? In this deep dive, we are going to rip Sigma apart. We're not just looking at features. We are going to explore the fundamental philosophy behind it and why it represents a radical departure from the way traditional BI tools think. We'll put it head-to-head with the established giants, exploring where it shines and, just as importantly, where it falls flat. We'll talk about the real-world implications for data teams, for business users, and for your career. By the end of this presentation, you will have a crystal-clear understanding of what Sigma is, who it's for, and whether it's the missing piece in your company's data stack, or just another overhyped startup. To really grasp why Sigma is causing such a stir, we have to understand the tool it's trying to emulate and ultimately replace, the spreadsheet. It's easy for tech folks to look down on Excel, to call it a legacy tool or a toy. But that's a massive mistake. The spreadsheet was, and still is, one of the most revolutionary pieces of software ever created. Before VisiCalc and Lotus 123 hit the scene in the early 80s, business planning was done on paper with calculators. If you wanted to change a single assumption in your forecast, you had to erase and recalculate everything by hand. It was painstaking. The electronic spreadsheet changed everything. It gave the average business person the power of a computer to model their business, to ask, what if? and to see the results instantly. It was interactive, it was intuitive, and it put immense analytical power into the hands of non-technical people. It was the original self-service analytics. The problem is, the world changed, but the spreadsheet didn't. The amount of data businesses now collect is staggering. A single Excel file maxes out at just over 1 million rows. A modern company's customer dataset can have billions, even trillions of rows. Trying to analyze that in Excel is like trying to empty the ocean with a teacup. It's impossible. Furthermore, spreadsheets are a governance and security nightmare. Who has the latest version? Is the data in this file even accurate? How do you make sure sensitive customer information isn't being emailed around in a file named sales_report_final_free_this_XLSX? It's chaos. This is the core dilemma that Sigma claims to solve. Their central thesis is this: people don't use spreadsheets because they love cells and formulas. They use them because they represent a way of thinking, a flexible, iterative, hands-on way to explore data. So, what if you could take that beloved, universally understood interface and connect it directly to the limitless power and scale of a cloud data warehouse like Snowflake? What if you could give users the familiar experience of a spreadsheet, but instead of manipulating 1,000 rows on their laptop, they are safely and securely manipulating billions of rows of live, governed data in the cloud? That's the magic trick. It's an attempt to merge the usability of the past with the power of the future. But this isn't a simple story of a new hero riding in to save the day. The business intelligence landscape is a battlefield. You have the titans, Microsoft with Power BI and Salesforce with Tableau, who have armies of developers, massive enterprise contracts, and a stranglehold on the market. They are not going to give up their territory without a fight. On the other side, you have data purists who are terrified by this idea. They argue that giving every business user the power to directly query and manipulate massive datasets is a recipe for disaster. They believe it will lead to people who don't understand statistical significance or data quality, drawing wildly incorrect conclusions, and making catastrophic business decisions based on flawed analysis. They see a future not of data democracy, but of data anarchy. So, who is right? Is Sigma's approach a revolutionary leap forward? Or is it a reckless oversimplification that will create more problems than it solves? To find the answer, we have to start at the very foundation of the modern data world. We have to understand the single biggest technological shift that made a tool like Sigma even possible: the invention and explosion of the cloud data warehouse. Because the way Sigma plugs into that foundation is the secret to its entire game-changing, or potentially game-breaking strategy. To understand why a tool like Sigma even exists, you have to go back in time. Not that far, maybe 10 or 15 years. Back to the era of the on-premise data warehouse. Imagine a company, a big one. In the basement of their corporate headquarters, behind a locked, cooled door, sits a massive server rack. This isn't just any server. It's a multi-million-dollar piece of hardware from a company like Oracle or Teradata. This is their data warehouse, their single source of truth. It is the digital cathedral where all the company's most precious information, sales figures, customer data, inventory logs, is stored. Now, let's say you're a marketing manager at this company. You have a simple question. Which of our ad campaigns last quarter had the best return on investment for customers under 30? Seems straightforward, right? Wrong. In the old world, you couldn't just ask the data warehouse. Oh no. You had to petition the high priests. These were the data engineers and database administrators, the guardians of the SQL query. So you'd file a ticket. You'd explain what you needed in plain English. That ticket would go into a queue. Days, maybe a week later, a data engineer would pick it up. They would then begin the arcane process of translating your simple business question into a complex 1,000-line SQL query. They would have to be incredibly careful because this multi-million-dollar server, this single source of truth, was also incredibly fragile. It had a fixed amount of processing power, a finite amount of memory. If they wrote a bad query, if it was too demanding, it could slow down the entire system for everyone else. The finance team running their end-of-month reports? Suddenly their queries are crawling. The CEO trying to pull up the daily sales dashboard? It's timing out. In a worst-case scenario, a really bad query could bring the whole cathedral crumbling down. So the engineer would run tests, optimize the code, and finally schedule a time to run the query, often in the middle of the night when system load was lowest. A day or two later, you'd get an email with a CSV file attached. You'd open it and realize it wasn't quite what you asked for. They'd misinterpreted a small part of your request. And so, the whole cycle would begin again. A simple question could turn into a multi-week game of telephone. A frustrating back and forth between the business people who had the questions and the technical gatekeepers who held the keys. This was the bottleneck. This was the reality for decades. Data was a precious resource, locked away in an ivory tower, accessible only to a select few. The business was forced to move at the speed of the IT ticket queue. Then everything changed. It wasn't a gradual evolution, it was cataclysm. A big bang. This was the rise of the cloud and specifically the invention of the cloud data warehouse. Companies like Snowflake, Google with BigQuery, and Amazon with Redshift looked at the old model and flipped it on its head. They recognized that the fundamental flaw of the old on-premise warehouse was that it bundled two very different things together: storage and compute. Storage is where the data lives. It's the filing cabinet. Compute is the brainpower that does the work. It's the person opening the cabinet, pulling out files, and doing the calculations. In the old world, if you wanted a bigger filing cabinet, you had to buy a whole new office with a bigger desk and a smarter person attached to it. They were inextricably linked. The cloud data warehouse did something revolutionary. It severed that link. It separated storage from compute. Your data could now live in a relatively cheap, infinitely scalable storage layer, like Amazon S3 or Google Cloud Storage. Think of it like a limitless, shared global pantry. Then, when you needed to ask a question, you could spin up a virtual computer, a compute cluster, to do the work. This is the kitchen. And here's the magic. You could spin up any size kitchen you wanted. Got a simple question? Spin up a small kitchen with a microwave for a few seconds and pay a few cents. Got a massive, company-wide, impossibly complex question? Spin up a 5-star industrial kitchen with 100 chefs for 10 minutes, pay for those 10 minutes, and then shut it all down. Suddenly, the marketing manager, the finance analyst, the product lead, they could all have their own kitchen, all using ingredients from the same giant pantry without ever getting in each other's way. The marketing manager's massive, experimental query couldn't slow down the CEO's critical dashboard anymore. The concept of running a query in the middle of the night became a relic of a bygone era. This architectural shift was seismic. It democratized raw computing power. Companies no longer needed to spend millions of dollars on hardware that would be obsolete in 5 years. They could rent a supercomputer by the second. The bottleneck, the fear of breaking the warehouse, simply evaporated. The floodgates of data were thrown open. Now you had this unbelievably powerful engine capable of answering incredibly complex questions in seconds, not weeks. The foundation was poured for a new era of business intelligence. But it created a new problem. A very subtle but very important one. You've just given everyone a Formula One engine. But the tools they were using to drive it, the business intelligence platforms like Tableau, Power BI, and Looker, were all designed and built in the era of the horse and buggy. They were built for the old world of on-premise warehouses, where compute was scarce and precious. Their entire philosophy was based on a concept called data extraction. Because they couldn't risk overwhelming the fragile on-premise warehouse, these tools would run a query, pull a subset of the data out of the warehouse, and load it into their own separate in-memory engine. They made a copy. This copy, or extract, was what the user actually interacted with. Think about the absurdity of this in the new world. You have Snowflake or BigQuery, this near-infinite source of power, and your BI tool's first move is to say, "Whoa, that's too much power. Let's just take a small piece of that data, move it over here to our own weaker, smaller server, and let you play with it there." It's like buying a brand new Tesla and immediately hiring someone to tow it everywhere. You're completely ignoring the engine that you're paying for. This extraction model created a whole new set of problems. First, your data was instantly stale. The moment that extract was created, the live data in the warehouse could have changed. So your report might be an hour old, a day old, a week old. Second, it created data silos all over again. Suddenly you have hundreds of different extracts living on different servers on people's laptops. Which one is the right one? Which one is the single source of truth? It defeats the entire purpose of having a central warehouse. And third, it's a governance and security nightmare. You're duplicating sensitive company data and scattering it across the digital landscape. So the stage was set. The world had shifted to these powerful elastic cloud data warehouses. A multi-trillion-dollar foundation had been laid. An engine of unprecedented power was humming, ready to go. But the interface, the steering wheel and dashboard that the average business person used to actually drive it, was still fundamentally built for a different kind of machine. It was a bottleneck forcing this new dynamic live-streaming world of data through the old slow static straw of data extraction. A massive architectural gap had opened up. And into that gap, a new idea began to form. The idea that maybe, just maybe, the interface should talk directly to the engine. It sounds simple, almost obvious in retrospect, but this idea was nothing short of a declaration of war on the entire establishment of business intelligence. For decades, the industry had been built on a fragile and fundamentally broken premise. The premise of the copy, the extract. The idea that to understand your data, you first had to rip it out of its home, ship it across the digital country, and reassemble it in a different proprietary format. Think about how insane this is. Your business generates petabytes of real-time information, pouring it into these magnificent, powerful cloud data warehouses like Snowflake, BigQuery, or Redshift. These are the Fort Knoxes of data, the central banks of truth. They are engineered to be secure, governed, and unimaginably fast at answering complex questions. And what was the standard industry practice? To ignore all that power. To send in a little data moving program, have it make a fuzzy static photocopy of a tiny fraction of the data, and then run analysis on that stale, isolated copy. This wasn't just inefficient, it was dangerous. It created a world of data purgatory, where information was trapped in transit or locked inside a BI tool's black box. It led to the dreaded data telephone game, where the numbers in a marketing dashboard didn't match the numbers in the finance dashboard, because they were based on different copies of the data, extracted at different times. This single flaw created a universe of confusion, mistrust, and endless meetings where the main topic wasn't what should we do, but which number is the real number. Worse, it created a culture of gatekeepers. A business user, someone on the front lines who understood the customer better than anyone, would have a brilliant, urgent question. But they couldn't just ask it. They had to file a ticket. They had to wait for a data engineer to approve the request, for a BI developer to write custom code, to build a new extract, to design a new dashboard. By the time the answer came back, days or even weeks later, the opportunity was gone. The market had shifted. The question was irrelevant. Curiosity was punished. Agility was impossible. This is the world that Sigma Computing was born to destroy. The founders, Rob Woolen and Jason France, weren't outsiders. They were insiders who had lived this pain at the highest level, within the data-drenched walls of Facebook. They saw firsthand that the most innovative companies in the world weren't using these clunky traditional BI tools. They were building their own internal systems that allowed their teams to interact with data live at its source. They saw a future where the distinction between data people and business people would simply melt away. And they centered their entire philosophy on a single, powerful, almost heretical observation. The most popular, most intuitive, and most powerful data analysis tool on planet Earth wasn't Tableau or Power BI. It was the spreadsheet. For more than 40 years, the spreadsheet has been the undisputed language of business. Rows, columns, formulas, pivot tables, charts, billions of people understand this paradigm. It's flexible, it's fast, and it allows for a kind of free-form creative exploration that rigid dashboards simply can't replicate. The problem was, the traditional spreadsheet breaks when you show it more than a few 100,000 rows of data. It can't handle the scale of the modern enterprise. So the founders of Sigma asked a revolutionary question. What if we didn't try to force a billion spreadsheet users to learn a new, complicated language? What if, instead, we taught the cloud data warehouse to speak the language of the spreadsheet? What if we could build an interface that felt as simple and familiar as Excel or Google Sheets, but connected it directly to the near-infinite power and scale of a warehouse like Snowflake? This wasn't about building a prettier dashboard. This was about forging a direct, neurological link between the human mind and the source of truth. And the way they did it is a masterclass in elegant engineering. At its heart, Sigma is a brilliant, real-time translator. A user doesn't write a single line of SQL. They just do what they already know how to do. They click on a column to sort it. They drag a field into a pivot table. They type a simple formula, like sum, sales, /count customers. And in the background, in milliseconds, Sigma's engine takes that simple human action and translates it into a complex, perfectly optimized, high-performance SQL query. But here's the critical part, the piece of the puzzle that changes the game entirely. Sigma doesn't then run that query itself. It doesn't pull massive amounts of data into its own servers for processing. That would be falling back into the old, broken model of data extraction. Instead, it practices what's known as push-down computation. It takes the SQL query it just generated and pushes it down to the cloud data warehouse. It essentially tells the warehouse, hey, you're the supercomputer. You've got all the data and all the processing power. You figure this out and just send me back the answer. The warehouse, with its massively parallel architecture, executes the query across hundreds or thousands of nodes simultaneously and sends back just the tiny, aggregated result in seconds. The implications of this architecture are seismic. First, speed and scale. You're no longer limited by the memory of your laptop or the capacity of a BI server. You can analyze a table with 10 billion rows as easily as one with 10,000 because all the heavy lifting is being done by an engine built for that exact purpose. Your computer's fan doesn't even whisper. Second, data freshness. The concept of a data refresh becomes obsolete. There is no copy. There is no extract. You are always, at every moment, querying the live up-to-the-second data as it exists in the warehouse. When a new sale is recorded, it's instantly available for analysis. The dashboard is no longer a historical photograph. It's a live video feed of your business. And third, and this is the part that makes Chief Information Security Officers sleep at night, is governance and security. Because the data never, ever leaves the secure perimeter of the cloud data warehouse, all the rules, permissions, and data masking policies you've painstakingly set up are automatically inherited and enforced. Sigma doesn't create a new vulnerable attack surface. It respects the vault you've already built. It's a user interface, not a data storage system. This combination created something the market had never seen before. A tool that gave the familiar, creative freedom of a spreadsheet to every user, but backed it with the security, governance, and raw power of a centralized cloud data warehouse. It wasn't just a new feature. It was a new category. It was the birth of the cloud analytics spreadsheet. But all of this technical elegance is meaningless if it doesn't translate into real-world impact. What happens when you actually put this power into the hands of someone on the front lines? Imagine a mid-level marketing analyst. Let's call her Sarah. Her boss just stormed over to her desk, panicked, with an impossible question that cuts across 3 different massive datasets. In the old world, answering this would be a project. A 2-week-long, multi-departmental data pulling exercise. But for Sarah, it's just another Tuesday morning. She cracks her knuckles, opens a new Sigma workbook, and stares at the blinking cursor. The fate of a multi-million-dollar campaign rests on what she does in the next 10 minutes. And what happens next would fundamentally change the way her entire company thought about the speed of insight forever. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, but they didn't type LECT. There was no time to write the query, run it, export the CSV, clean it in Python, and then pivot it in Excel. The meeting was happening now. The CMO was waiting. Instead, she clicked a bookmark in her browser labeled simply, Sigma. The screen that loaded wasn't a black terminal or a complex dashboard builder with 100 confusing icons. It was a grid, rows and columns, a formula bar at the top. It looked for all intents and purposes like a spreadsheet. But this was no ordinary spreadsheet. This wasn't a flimsy Excel file living on her desktop, limited to 1 million rows and choking on 100,000. This was a window, a direct, live portal into the multi-petabyte Snowflake data warehouse that held every single transaction, every click, every customer interaction the company had ever recorded. And this is the first and arguably most profound piece of the Sigma puzzle we need to unpack. The most radical idea in modern data analytics wasn't a new, impossibly complex visualization engine or a cryptic programming language. It was the realization that the single most powerful and universally understood interface for data in the history of business is the spreadsheet. For decades, we've been trying to get business users to stop using spreadsheets for serious analysis. We told them they were insecure, error-prone, and couldn't handle big data. We tried to force-feed them complex BI tools that required weeks of training and a dedicated team of specialists to build anything meaningful. We created a system where business experts, the people who actually understood the context of the data, were forced to submit a ticket and wait in line for a data expert to translate their question into a language called SQL. Sigma's founders looked at this broken workflow and asked a fundamentally different question. What if, instead of trying to pull people away from the spreadsheet, we brought the power of the cloud data warehouse to the spreadsheet? What Sarah was looking at wasn't a copy of the data. Not a single byte of that petabyte-scale warehouse had been moved to her laptop. Sigma doesn't move data. It acts as an incredibly intelligent translation layer. Think of it like a United Nations interpreter. On one side, you have the business user, Sarah, who speaks the universal language of spreadsheets, VLOOKUPs, SUMIFs, pivot tables. On the other side, you have the data warehouse, Snowflake, a computational titan that only speaks one highly structured language, SQL. When Sarah clicks on a column to filter for East Coast, Sigma doesn't download the whole column and filter it on her machine. It instantly translates her click into a where region equals East Coast clause in an optimized SQL query and sends it to Snowflake. When she drags revenue into a pivot table, Sigma translates that into a sum revenue group by query. Every single interaction, every formula, every chart she builds is being translated, in real time, into the precise language the warehouse understands. The warehouse does all the heavy lifting, all the computation, and sends back just one tiny thing, the answer. This is a paradigm shift of monumental proportions. The bottleneck isn't the hardware anymore. Cloud warehouses are absurdly powerful. The bottleneck has always been the human translator, the data analyst forced to be a go-between. Sigma automates the translator. Back in the crisis room, Sarah wasn't thinking about any of this. She was just moving. The CMO's first question echoed in her head. What's the ROI on the new East Coast campaign versus the West Coast? Instead of writing a complex query with multiple joins between marketing spend tables, attribution tables, and sales tables, she started clicking. On the left side of her screen was a simple list of all the curated data tables she had access to: transactions, @spend, user_sessions. She added the columns she needed with a few clicks: campaign name, region, spend, revenue. They appeared in her worksheet instantly, representing millions of rows of live data. Then her muscle memory took over. She clicked the pivot button. She dragged region into the rows field. She dragged campaign name into the columns. Simple enough. Now for the metric. She needed to calculate ROI, which was revenue spend/spend. In the old world, this would be a nightmare. She'd have to export the raw data, and then in Excel create a new column, painstakingly write the formula, and drag it down, praying her laptop didn't freeze. Here she just clicked Add New Column. A cursor blinked. She typed, almost laughing at the simplicity of it, sum of revenue, sum of spend. A new column appeared, calculated across millions of rows in less than a second. She created another column, ROI, and typed column 1/ sum of spend, formatting it as a percentage. The answer materialized on her screen in under a minute. The East Coast campaign was underperforming, badly, but the CMO had a follow-up. Is that true for all customer segments? What about new users who signed up in the last 30 days? This was the killer. In an Excel-based workflow, this is the point of total collapse. She'd have to go all the way back to the beginning, write a new SQL query with a new date filter, re-export, rebuild the pivot table, recalculate the formulas. It would be another hour at least. In Sigma, she just looked at the user_date column that was already in her dataset. She added a filter. A calendar popped up. She selected in the last 30 days. The entire pivot table, all the formulas, every number refreshed in the blink of an eye. The warehouse had rerun the entire calculation across the entire petabyte scale dataset with this new filter applied, and sent the answer back. The process took about 3 seconds, and the answer was different. For new users, the East Coast campaign's ROI was actually higher than the West Coast's. The campaign wasn't a failure. It was a massive success with a specific high-value cohort. The overall average was being dragged down by older, less engaged customers. This wasn't just data. This was insight. The kind of insight that saves a multi-million-dollar campaign from being canceled prematurely. She quickly built a simple bar chart comparing the two segments side by side. Took 10 clicks. The entire dashboard, from a blank worksheet to a finished, interactive visualization that answered the CMO's exact, nuanced question, had taken her less than 5 minutes. She wasn't just looking at a static report. She was having a conversation with her company's data. The data wasn't something to be painfully extracted and wrestled with. It was a fluid, dynamic partner in her analysis. She could ask a question, get an answer, and immediately ask a follow-up, and a follow-up to that, drilling down and exploring hypotheses at the speed of thought. The ghost of stale data, the nagging fear that the CSV you downloaded 2 hours ago is already out of date, was gone. This was live. This is the core promise of Sigma. To collapse the time between question and answer to nearly zero. To take the power of a cloud data warehouse, which for so long was locked away behind the high priests of SQL, and put it directly into the hands of the people who know the business best. It's not about replacing data teams. It's about freeing them from an endless backlog of routine requests, so they can focus on the truly hard, strategic problems. It's about creating a data-literate organization, not by forcing everyone to become a programmer, but by giving them a tool that speaks the language they already know. Sarah looked at the clean, simple dashboard she'd built. It told a clear story. It was backed by every shred of data the company had. And it was finished. She clicked the share button in the top right corner, copied the link, and pasted it into the Slack channel with the executive team. She typed a short message. Here's the live analysis on campaign performance. The story is more interesting than we thought. She hit send. Across the building, the CMO, sitting in a conference room filled with nervous silence, saw the notification pop up on his laptop. He clicked the link, and what he saw on his screen wasn't a spreadsheet or a static image. It was something else entirely, something that would make him stop the meeting cold. He was staring at a spreadsheet, or what looked like a spreadsheet. The familiar grid of columns and rows was there, the formula bar at the top, the tabs at the bottom. It felt as comfortable and intuitive as his worn-in keyboard. But this was no ordinary spreadsheet. The columns weren't labeled A, B, C. They were labeled customer ID, region, product SKU, transaction amount. And the rows he scrolled down, and kept scrolling. The scroll bar barely moved. He glanced at a small info panel. It read, displaying 500 of 1.7 billion rows. 1.7 billion. His blood ran cold. This wasn't a CSV export. This wasn't a data sample. This was the entire unadulterated history of the company's sales, streamed live, directly from their Snowflake data warehouse, rendered inside something that looked and felt like Google Sheets. It was impossible. Running a VLOOKUP on a file this size would melt his laptop. Heck, just opening a file this size would melt his laptop. Yet here it was. He clicked on the header for region. A drop-down appeared. He clicked Northeast. Instantly, the 1.7 billion rows filtered. A chart to the right of the grid, a simple bar chart showing sales by quarter, flickered and redrew itself in less than a second. It was now only showing Northeast sales. He unchecked Northeast and clicked West. The chart morphed again. The speed was dizzying. It was responding faster than his own thoughts. Tom? We're waiting. The CEO's voice cut through his trance. Every head in the room was turned towards him. The silence was heavy, judgmental. This was it. The moment of career-ending failure. He was supposed to have the answer, but instead he'd gotten lost in some weird link from his data engineer friend. He took a breath and did the one thing a junior analyst should never ever do. He interrupted the CEO. Sir, he said, his voice trembling slightly. I apologize, but you need to see this. The CEO's eyes narrowed. The air in the room got 10 degrees colder. See what, Tom? Another chart that tells me we're missing our numbers. No, sir. Not another chart. Tom swallowed hard. The answer. All the answers. I think they're right here. A dangerous, skeptical curiosity flickered in the CEO's eyes. Put it on the screen. Tom's hand shook as he connected his laptop to the massive boardroom display. The familiar yet impossible spreadsheet filled the wall. A few murmurs rippled through the room. The CFO squinted. Is that Excel? Tom, if this is another pivot table. It's not Excel, sir, Tom said, gaining a sliver of confidence. He was on stage now. He had to perform. The CEO leaned forward, his voice low and challenging. All right, smart guy. You say the answers are in there. Let's start with the question I asked 20 minutes ago. Why are our subscription renewal rates for our per-tier product tanking in the Southwest? Specifically for customers who signed up in the last 2 years. This was a nightmare question, a multi-layered beast. It crossed different data sets. User data, subscription logs, financial records. In their old system, this was a one-week job minimum. It required a data engineer to join tables, an analyst to clean the data, and then another analyst to build the visualization. A week. If they were lucky. Tom turned to the screen. His mind raced, but his hands moved with a strange new certainty. He found the region column. He filtered for Southwest. The charts updated. He found the product tier column. He filtered for Pro tier. The charts updated again. He found the subscription start date column. This was the tricky part. He needed customers from the last 2 years. He didn't need to ask anyone for help. He didn't need to write a line of SQL. He just clicked on the column, added a filter, and in the condition box, he typed a formula that felt as natural as breathing. Subscription start date, January 1st, 2022. The entire dashboard, all 1.7 billion rows, recrunched and redrew itself on the wall in the time it took the CFO to blink. A collective, sharp intake of breath sucked the air out of the room. They were now looking at only the problem cohort. The chart of renewals over time showed a terrifying cliff dive that started about 6 months ago. "Okay," the CEO said, his voice stripped of its earlier hostility, replaced by a focused intensity. "That's fast. But that's the what. I need the why. What happened 6 months ago?" Tom's eyes scanned the available columns of data at the side of his screen. He saw customer support tickets. He saw user login frequency. He saw feature adoption rate. It was all there, live, connected. He dragged the feature adoption rate field onto the chart. A new line appeared, overlaid on the renewal data. The room went dead silent. The new line showed a massive drop-off in the use of a key feature, the project collaboration tool, starting exactly 2 weeks before the renewal rates began to plummet. The VP of product shot up in her chair. "That can't be right. We pushed the Collaboration 2.0 update 6.5 months ago. It was supposed to make it better." Tom, now feeling a surge of adrenaline, clicked on the feature adoption data point corresponding to the drop. A menu popped up. "Drill down," it said. He clicked it. He could drill down by customer, by subregion, by app version. He clicked app version. The screen refreshed. And there was the smoking gun, glowing on the 80-inch display for everyone to see. The data was split. Customers on the old app version had stable feature usage. Customers who had updated to the new version, their usage had fallen off a cliff. The new update, the one they'd spent millions developing, wasn't an improvement. It was a disaster. It was so unusable that it was literally causing their most valuable customers to leave. They had found the why. Not in a week, not in a day, but in about 90 seconds. In the middle of a meeting, the CEO just stared at the screen, then at Tom, then back at the screen. He wasn't angry anymore. He looked like a man who had just seen fire for the first time. What Tom and the executive team had just experienced was the core promise of Sigma computing. It wasn't just a new dashboarding tool. It was a fundamental paradigm shift in how people interact with data. For decades, the world of data analytics has been built on a painful, slow, and inefficient cycle. The business user, the CEO, the marketing manager, has a question. They can't answer it themselves because the data lives in a complex, locked-away database. So they file a ticket. That ticket goes into a long queue for a data analyst. The analyst might need a data engineer to pull and prepare the data first. Days, sometimes weeks pass. Finally, the analyst produces a static report, a PDF or a PowerPoint slide, and sends it back. But what happens, inevitably? The business user looks at the report and says, "Oh, that's interesting. But now that I see this, can we look at it by customer segment? And can we exclude new signups from last month?" And the whole agonizing cycle starts all over again. This is the bottleneck that has plagued businesses for a generation. The people with the questions are separated from the data by a wall of technical complexity and slow processes. Business moves at the speed of conversation, but data has been moving at the speed of bureaucracy. Sigma's argument is that the only way to fix this is to smash the wall, to eliminate the cycle, to give the people with the questions the power to answer them themselves, safely, securely, and at the speed of thought. How? By doing something so simple it's almost insulting. They put the full, unadulterated power of a modern cloud data warehouse, like Snowflake or BigQuery, inside an interface that everyone on the planet already knows how to use. A spreadsheet. It's not an export. It's not a copy. It is a live, interactive portal directly into the company's single source of truth. Every click, every filter, every formula Tom typed was being translated by Sigma, in real time, into optimized SQL, sent to the warehouse, executed across trillions of rows of data, and returned to his screen in milliseconds. It's a magic trick that feels like a simple spreadsheet. And in that boardroom, for the first time, the executive team wasn't just looking at a report about the past. They were having a live conversation with their data. The barrier was gone. And as the questions started flying, fast and furious, not at Tom, but at the screen he was controlling, it became clear that for this company, nothing would ever be the same. The age of the static report was over. But this new power, this incredible speed, it comes with its own set of challenges and profound implications. Is it really the silver bullet it appears to be? The immediate, almost intoxicating answer is yes. For the business user who just went from waiting 3 weeks for a static CSV file to exploring billions of rows of live data in a familiar spreadsheet, it feels like a miracle. A true silver bullet. But for the chief financial officer, for the head of data engineering, for the chief data officer, the answer is far more complicated. Because when you hand the keys to the most powerful engine in the company to everyone, You can't be surprised when they decide to redline it. And that's where the first and perhaps most shocking challenge of the Sigma paradigm emerges: the cost conundrum. See, the magic of Sigma is that it doesn't hold your data. It's a window, a brilliant and interactive pane of glass, looking directly into your cloud data warehouse like Snowflake, BigQuery, or Redshift. Every filter you apply, every column you sort, every chart you build is a live query sent directly to that warehouse. And those warehouses operate on a consumption-based model. You pay for the compute you use. Every query has a price tag. So, when you empower 100, 1,000, or 10,000 employees to ask unlimited questions of your data, you are, in effect, giving them a corporate credit card with a direct, uncapped line to your cloud bill. Imagine this scenario, one that has played out in boardrooms across the country. A mid-sized e-commerce company, let's call them Acme Retail, adopts Sigma. The rollout is a massive success. The marketing team is ecstatic. They're finally able to track campaign performance in real time, slicing and dicing customer data in ways they'd only dreamed of. The logistics team builds dashboards to monitor inventory levels minute by minute, optimizing their supply chain on the fly. Adoption goes through the roof. The head of BI is hailed as a hero. Then the first full month's bill from Snowflake arrives. The CFO calls an emergency meeting. The bill isn't just a little higher. It's 5 times what it was the previous month. It's 10 times what they budgeted for the entire quarter. Panic sets in. What happened? Was there a breach? A rogue process? The data team scrambles, running diagnostics, auditing query logs, and they come back with a terrifyingly simple answer. Nothing went wrong. The tool was just working. The marketing team, in their excitement, had built a dashboard that was auto-refreshing every 5 minutes, running a complex query across a year's worth of sales data. The logistics team had a dozen people all simultaneously drilling down into massive tables, each click firing off new computations. It was death by 1,000 queries. The very success of the platform, its incredible ease of use and addictiveness, had created a financial black hole. This is the paradox of power. The tool is designed to encourage curiosity, but in a pay-as-you-go world, curiosity can be catastrophically expensive. But the financial risk is only one head of this new beast. The second, and arguably more insidious, challenge is the governance gauntlet. For decades, business intelligence was a centralized function. A small, highly trained team of analysts acted as gatekeepers. They were the guardians of truth. They understood the nuances of the data, the official definitions of key metrics, and the correct way to join tables. The process was slow and frustrating, but it was controlled. It was consistent. Sigma blows the gates off this old kingdom. It creates a data democracy, but it can quickly descend into data anarchy. Suddenly, you have a product manager in one department and a sales operations lead in another, both looking at the exact same underlying sales data. The product manager builds a workbook and calculates customer lifetime value by including all purchases. The sales lead builds their own workbook but, following an old convention, excludes returns and promotional items from their customer lifetime value calculation. Both of them believe their number is correct. Both of them walk into a leadership meeting with dashboards that tell completely different stories. Who is right? The debate begins. The meeting grinds to a halt. Trust in the data evaporates. Instead of making faster, data-driven decisions, the team is now bogged down in arguments about data definitions and methodology. This isn't a failure of the tool. It's a failure of the process around it. Sigma's greatest strength, its ability to empower any individual to be their own analyst, is also its greatest weakness if not managed properly. It decentralizes the ability to analyze, but it also decentralizes the potential for error and misinterpretation. Without a strong framework for data literacy, without clear, universally understood definitions for key business metrics, you're not creating a single source of truth. You're creating 1,000 sources of opinion, all masquerading as truth, all beautifully rendered in a slick, trustworthy-looking interface. This leads us directly to the third major hurdle, the performance paradox. The entire promise of a tool like Sigma is speed, instantaneous answers, the end of the spinning wheel of death. But remember, Sigma is the car, not the engine. The performance a user experiences is almost entirely dependent on the power and optimization of the underlying cloud data warehouse. If that warehouse is a finely tuned, high-performance machine, Sigma will fly. But if it's a clunky, inefficient, poorly designed engine, Sigma will crawl. And the average business user has no idea what's happening under the hood. They just know they clicked a filter, and it's taking 30 seconds to load. Their immediate reaction isn't, Oh, our data engineering team must have designed the underlying tables inefficiently, failing to implement proper clustering keys or materialized views. No, their reaction is, this new Sigma tool is slow. The blame falls on the beautiful front end, not the complex back end. This creates immense pressure on data engineering and platform teams. Their job is no longer just to ensure data is accurate and available. They are now on the hook for the sub-second query performance expected by hundreds or thousands of business users, who are all hitting the database at the same time with unpredictable workloads. Every poorly written query, every massively complex workbook built by an untrained user, doesn't just create a bad experience for them. It consumes expensive warehouse credits and can even degrade performance for everyone else using the system. The data team becomes a permanent fire department, racing to optimize the unoptimizable, trying to build a foundation strong enough to withstand the chaotic, creative, and often inefficient curiosity of the entire organization. So you have this perfect storm. A cost model that penalizes the very curiosity you want to encourage. A governance model that can accidentally replace a single source of truth with 1,000 points of confusion. And a performance model that puts an unprecedented strain on your back-end infrastructure. This isn't to say the promise isn't real. The power is undeniable. But harnessing it requires more than just buying a software license. It requires a fundamental shift in how a company manages its data, its people, and its budget. It demands a new kind of discipline, a new level of collaboration between business and technology. The question is no longer just, can we give everyone access to all the data? The real question now is, what do we need to build both culturally and technically to survive that power? To survive that power, you have to fundamentally rethink the relationship between your people and your data. Let's start with the cultural build because frankly, it's the harder part. For decades, the dominant model in analytics has been what I call the priesthood of data. You had a small, highly specialized group of data analysts and engineers who were the sole guardians of the company's information. If a business user, say a marketing manager, needed a report, they would submit a ticket. They'd wait in a queue for days, sometimes weeks. The data team, the priests, would then perform their sacred rituals in SQL, extract the data, put it into a static dashboard or a CSV file, and hand it down from on high. The business user would get their answer, but it was a black box. They couldn't question it, they couldn't tweak it, and by the time they got it, they already had 5 new questions. This created a massive bottleneck, immense frustration, and a culture where data was seen as a scarce, difficult resource. Sigma and tools like it are a direct assault on this entire model. They are built on the philosophy of data democratization. The goal is to tear down the temple walls and give everyone the power to ask and answer their own questions. But here's the critical part that most hype cycles miss. Handing everyone a key to the data kingdom doesn't automatically create a utopia. It can create chaos. It can create an analytics Wild West, where everyone is a gunslinger, pulling different data, running different calculations, and showing up to meetings with conflicting numbers. One person calculates customer churn one way. Another calculates it a slightly different way. Suddenly, nobody trusts the data. The single source of truth shatters into a million pieces of truthiness. This is the cultural nightmare you have to build against. The solution isn't to lock the data back up. The solution is to build a culture of guided exploration. This means establishing a center of excellence, or at least a set of clear data champions within the organization. Their job isn't to write every report. Their job is to curate the core data, to build and certify the foundational data models that everyone else can then build upon. They become less like priests and more like park rangers. They don't tell you exactly where to walk, but they mark the trails, put up guardrails near the cliffs, and ensure the foundational ecosystem is healthy. They teach people how to read the map, not just hand them a destination. This is where the technical build comes in because a tool like Sigma is designed to facilitate this exact cultural model. It's not just a free-for-all spreadsheet. It's a governed ecosystem. Think about it. A data engineer can connect Sigma to the company's Snowflake data warehouse. They can then take the raw, messy tables like orders, customers, and transactions and join them together into a clean, curated dataset. They can rename cryptic columns like cust_survey2 to something simple like customer ID. They can pre-calculate important metrics like revenue or profit margin and certify them as the official company-approved formulas. Now, when the marketing manager logs into Sigma, they don't see the 100+ raw tables in the warehouse. They see a handful of beautiful, curated datasets, certified sales data, official marketing leads, approved customer demographics. The park ranger has marked the trails. The marketing manager can now take that certified data and start exploring. They can pivot, filter, and create their own charts, all within the safe, governed sandbox of that curated data. They can't accidentally use the wrong revenue calculation because the right one is already built in. This is the balance. You give them the freedom to explore, but within a framework of trust and consistency. And this brings us to one of the most powerful, yet understated features of this new paradigm: data lineage. In the old world of exporting CSVs, lineage was a ghost. A number would appear in a PowerPoint slide, and if the CEO asked, "Where did that number come from?" the answer was often a panic scramble through old emails and downloaded files. It was a nightmare of forensic accounting. In Sigma, because every calculation happens live on the warehouse, there's a perfect, unbroken audit trail. You can click on any number in any chart on any dashboard and trace its entire journey. You can see the exact formula that was used. You can see the specific filters that were applied. You can see the underlying curated dataset it came from, and you can even see the raw SQL query that Sigma generated and sent to the warehouse to produce that single number. This isn't just a technical feature. It's a cultural revolution. It builds trust at an institutional level. When two people show up with different numbers, you can resolve the discrepancy in seconds, not days. You can see one person included returns in their sales figures and the other didn't. There's no argument, just clarity. This instant traceability is what allows you to survive the power of democratized data. It replaces suspicion with transparency. But I know what the skeptics are thinking. This all sounds great, but if hundreds of business users are constantly running live queries against our central data warehouse, isn't that going to bring the entire system to its knees? Won't it cost a fortune in computing credits? This is a valid and crucial question, and it gets to the heart of why Sigma's architecture is so different from legacy BI tools. Legacy tools often relied on something called extracts. They would pull a huge chunk of data out of the warehouse and into their own proprietary in-memory engine. This was fast for the end user, but it was a governance disaster. The data was immediately stale, it was disconnected from the source of truth, and you had dozens of these data silos floating around the company. Sigma uses the exact opposite approach. It holds no data. Zero. It is a thin, intelligent layer that sits on top of your cloud data warehouse. When a user drags and drops a column or applies a filter in Sigma's spreadsheet interface, Sigma doesn't move any data. Instead, it translates that user action into a perfectly optimized SQL query and sends it to the powerhouse in the background: your Snowflake, your BigQuery, your Redshift. Think of it like this. Your cloud data warehouse is a world-class symphony orchestra. It's incredibly powerful and can play the most complex music. In the old model, you had analysts who knew how to write the sheet music, the SQL, but they were the only ones. Everyone else just got a recording. Sigma is the ultimate conductor. It allows someone who has never written a note of sheet music in their life to stand in front of that orchestra, wave their hands in a simple, intuitive way, and have the orchestra play Beethoven's Fifth perfectly. Sigma itself isn't doing the heavy lifting of processing petabytes of data. It's just the brilliant translator between human curiosity and the warehouse's raw power. This query push-down architecture is what makes this model scalable. You're leveraging the multi-billion-dollar investment that companies like Google and Amazon have poured into making their data warehouses astonishingly fast and efficient. As the warehouse gets faster, Sigma gets faster with no changes needed. It means you can have one central, infinitely scalable engine for your data, and one central, infinitely scalable interface for your people. It's a marriage of simplicity and power that was simply not possible 10 years ago. It's a system designed not just for access, but for trust, scale, and a level of collaboration that turns data from a guarded resource into a shared language. But this perfect harmony of business and technology, this elegant solution to the cultural and technical challenges, it comes at a cost. And that cost is something most companies are not prepared to pay. It isn't about money, it's about control. It's the fundamental tension at the heart of every modern company, the battle between the guardians of the data and the explorers who need it to survive. For decades, the guardians have held the high ground. The data engineering teams, the IT departments, the BI specialists, they built the fortress. They controlled the keys, the pipelines, the definitions. They were the arbiters of truth, and for good reason. In a world of messy, complex, and often contradictory data, you needed a centralized authority to prevent absolute chaos. They built the dashboards, they ran the queries, they delivered the reports. The business would make a request, and days, sometimes weeks later, an answer would be handed down from the mountain. This model wasn't born out of a desire for power. It was born out of necessity. The tools were complex, the skills were rare, and the risk of a single bad query bringing a critical database to its knees was very, very real. This is the old world. A world of data scarcity. Not a scarcity of data itself, we were drowning in it, but a scarcity of access to insights. The business users, the people on the front lines making daily decisions, were kept at a distance. They were treated like children who couldn't be trusted with sharp objects. Tell us what you need, the guardians would say, and we will get it for you. Then comes Sigma, and it doesn't just knock on the door of the fortress. It hands a battering ram to every single person in the company. Sigma's core philosophy is a direct assault on this centralized model of control. It argues that the people closest to the business problems, the marketing managers, the product analysts, the operations leads, are the best equipped to ask and answer their own questions. It posits that the bottleneck isn't technology. It's the organizational structure we've built around our data. This is where the cost comes in. The price of adopting a tool like Sigma is the surrender of absolute control. For a data team that has spent years building its reputation on being the sole source of truth and accuracy, this is terrifying. Their immediate reaction is predictable, and it's completely rational. They imagine a world of anarchy. 1,000 different employees running 1,000 different queries, all getting slightly different answers to the same question. What was our revenue last quarter? They see a future where every team has their own pet dashboard, their own version of the truth, and the entire concept of a unified business strategy dissolves into a mist of conflicting metrics. They see the Wild West of data, and they see themselves as the lone sheriffs trying to prevent a shootout at the OK Corral. And their fear goes deeper. It's existential. If a marketing manager can build their own complex cohort analysis, if a finance analyst can model future revenue scenarios on their own, then what is the purpose of the dedicated BI developer? For years, their value was tied to their mastery of complex tools, their ability to write intricate SQL code that could tame the data beast. Sigma abstracts much of that away, putting the power of SQL into a familiar, intuitive spreadsheet interface. Suddenly, the skills that made them indispensable feel commoditized. The fear of being made irrelevant is a powerful motivator to resist change. But this fear, this resistance to giving up control, is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of what a tool like Sigma is actually enabling. It's not about anarchy. It's about changing the nature of control, not abolishing it. It's the difference between being a gatekeeper and being an architect. A gatekeeper stands at the door and decides who gets in and who doesn't. An architect designs the entire building, ensuring it's safe, efficient, and that everyone can navigate it easily to get where they need to go. Sigma pushes data teams to stop being gatekeepers and start being architects. Here's how it works in practice. The data team's role shifts from being the reactive builders of reports to the proactive curators of data. They focus their immense talent on what truly matters: building clean, reliable, and performant data models in the cloud data warehouse. They are the ones who define what a customer is. They are the ones who certify the official revenue calculation. They build the foundational blocks of truth. They create what Sigma calls curated data sources. These are the gold standard IT-approved datasets. Then, and only then, do they hand the keys to the business. When a user in Sigma starts a new analysis, they aren't pointing at a chaotic mess of raw database tables. They are starting from these beautiful, curated, and trusted building blocks. The data team has already done the hard part. They've built the safe, well-lit playground. The business user is now free to play, to explore, to combine these blocks in novel ways. But they can't color outside the lines that the data team has drawn. They can't accidentally use the wrong revenue definition, because the only one available to them is the certified one. This new model transforms the data team from a bottleneck into an enablement engine. Their value skyrockets. They are no longer buried under an avalanche of tickets, asking for a new column on a dashboard. Instead, they are strategic partners to the business focused on high-leverage activities. They spend their time thinking about how to model new business processes, how to improve query performance, and how to teach data literacy across the organization. They become force multipliers, making everyone around them better and smarter. Imagine a product manager. Let's call her Sarah. In the old world, Sarah has a hunch that a new feature is causing a drop in user engagement for a specific customer segment in the Midwest. To validate this, she files a ticket with the BI team. The ticket goes into a queue behind 37 other requests. A week later, a BI developer picks it up. He has questions. There's back and forth over Slack. Finally, another week later, Sarah gets a dashboard. It's close but not quite right. It doesn't let her drill down into the user behavior she needs to see. She requests a change. Another ticket. Another wait. By the time she gets the data she needs, 3 weeks have passed. The damage is done, and the window of opportunity to fix it has shrunk. Now imagine Sarah's life with Sigma. The data team has already built and certified a user engagement data model. It has everything. User demographics, feature usage, session times, you name it. Sarah opens Sigma. She starts with that curated model. In an interface that feels just like Excel or Google Sheets, she filters for her specific customer segment. She pulls in the feature launch date. She creates a pivot table to compare engagement metrics before and after the launch. She sees the drop immediately, but she doesn't stop there. She creates a new column on the fly to calculate a power user score. She joins this data with a separate curated model for customer support tickets. In 45 minutes, she has not only validated her hunch, but has also discovered that the engagement drop is almost exclusively among users on a specific mobile operating system, and that it correlates with the spike in UI lag support tickets. She has the full story. She shares her live Sigma workbook in the product team's Slack channel, and the engineering team starts working on a fix that same afternoon. That is the difference. It's the difference between the speed of bureaucracy and the speed of thought. The cost isn't a loss of control. It's a redefinition of control. It's about controlling the source, the foundation, the definitions, and then letting go, trusting the people you hired to do their jobs. It's a cultural shift from a parent-child relationship with data to a partnership between adults. But embracing this philosophy, making this profound cultural shift, is only the first step. The vision is one thing, the execution is another entirely. Because even with the best intentions, the best technology, and the smartest people, this transition from a centralized fortress to a decentralized data democracy can go horribly, catastrophically wrong. The path to this data-driven utopia is paved with the wreckage of failed projects. And the primary reason they fail has almost nothing to do with the technology itself. It's something far more human, and far more difficult to fix. It's the organizational immune system rejecting the transplant. It's the deep-seated, invisible, and incredibly powerful force of human culture. Let's call it the data tower of Babel. In one part of the company you have the business leaders, the marketing VPs, the sales directors. They speak the language of revenue, of customer churn, of market share and quarterly targets. They ask questions like, which marketing campaign is driving the most valuable customers? Or why did our sales in the Midwest dip by 7% last month? These are the questions that actually matter, the ones that drive the business forward. Then, in another part of the company you have the data team. The brilliant analysts, the data scientists, the engineers. They speak an entirely different language. They speak in SQL, Python, and dbt. They talk about schemas, normalization, ETL pipelines, and data latency. They are the guardians of the data, the architects of the infrastructure. They are tasked with providing the answers. And in between these two groups, there's a massive chasm, a communications breakdown of epic proportions. The business team knows what they need, but they don't know how to ask for it in a way the data team can immediately execute on. The data team has the technical skills to get the answer, but they often lack the deep business context to understand the real question behind the request. This disconnect creates a workflow that is so fundamentally broken, it's a miracle any insights ever emerge at all. Picture this because you've probably lived it. Sarah, a marketing manager, needs to understand the performance of a recent campaign. She can't get the data herself. It's locked away in the corporate data warehouse, a fortress she has no keys to. So, she opens a project management tool and files a ticket. She types out her request as best she can and sends it into the void. That ticket lands in a queue, a digital purgatory behind dozens, maybe hundreds of other requests. Sits there. For days. Maybe weeks. Finally, Mike, an overworked data analyst, gets assigned the ticket. He reads Sarah's request. It seems straightforward, but he's missing the context. He doesn't know about the meeting she has with her VP next Tuesday. He doesn't know the real goal is to justify a budget increase. He just sees a request for numbers. So, Mike writes a complex SQL query. He joins a few tables, pulls the data, exports it to a CSV file, and attaches it to the ticket. Done, he types, and moves on to the next fire he has to put out. Sarah gets the email. She opens the CSV. It's a wall of numbers. It's technically what she asked for, but it's not what she needed. Looking at the data, she immediately has 5 follow-up questions. Wait, can we segment this by new versus returning customers? Can we see the lifetime value of the users from this campaign? How does this compare to the campaign we ran last quarter? But for each of those questions, the entire painful cycle has to start over again. New ticket, new wait, new context-free query. By the time she gets the answers, the window of opportunity has closed. The meeting with the VP has passed. The budget decision has been made. She gives up, frustrated, and makes the next decision based on her gut instinct. The very thing the multi-million-dollar data stack was supposed to prevent. Now multiply that story by 1,000. Cross every department, every single day. That is the wreckage. That is why data projects fail. The technology is there. The data is there. But the human process is a bottleneck. The data team becomes a team of short-order cooks, slinging out data extracts without ever understanding the menu. And the business team feels like they're shouting into a void, starved for the insights they were promised. The result? Burnout for the analysts, frustration for the business, and a massive, expensive data warehouse that's operating at 10% of its potential value. This is the core problem that a tool like Sigma claims to solve. It's not just about building a better dashboard. It's about fundamentally rewiring this broken human workflow. It does this by creating a common language. That spreadsheet interface? That's not a gimmick. It's a deliberate strategic choice. It's the universal translator in the data tower of Babel. Suddenly, Sarah from marketing doesn't need to file a ticket to ask a follow-up question. Mike the analyst can build a secure, governed, and pre-vetted data source, connecting all the right tables, defining all the key metrics, and then he can share a link to it. He's no longer the short-order cook. He's the master chef who has prepped the entire kitchen. Now Sarah can open that link and she's not looking at a static CSV or a rigid dashboard. She's looking at a live, interactive spreadsheet, connected directly to the billions of rows in the data warehouse. She sees the initial data Mike prepared for her. But now, when she has that follow-up question, can we segment this by new versus returning customers? She doesn't file a ticket. She just drags the customer type column into the pivot table. The answer appears in less than a second. How does this compare to last quarter? She adds a filter. The answer appears instantly. She can drill down. She can create new calculations. She can build her own visualizations. She is exploring the data, not just consuming a report. The friction between a business question and a data-driven answer has been reduced from weeks to seconds. This is a seismic shift. It's the difference between sending letters by horse and having a real-time conversation. And crucially, this isn't the Wild West of data chaos. This is freedom within a framework. Mike and the data team still control the source of truth. They define the data models. They set the permissions. They ensure that when Sarah looks at revenue, it's the same revenue the finance team is looking at. They've built the guardrails. But within those guardrails, Sarah is empowered to drive the car wherever she needs to go. This changes the very nature of everyone's job. Sarah is no longer a passive requester. She's an active participant in data analysis. She becomes more data literate with every question she answers for herself. Mike is no longer a ticket taker. He's elevated to a data strategist. He spends his time building robust, reusable data models that empower dozens of Sarahs across the company. He's a force multiplier, not a bottleneck. This is the cultural transformation that Sigma is selling. The promise isn't just a new tool. It's a new way of working. It's a move from a centralized service desk model of analytics to a decentralized, federated model, where everyone is empowered to use data within their own domain. It's about fostering genuine curiosity, because people know they can get answers immediately. When you remove the friction, the entire dynamic changes. The number of questions asked explodes. The quality of the questions gets better. People start seeing data not as a chore, but as a tool for discovery. And that is how you get a return on your data investment. That is how you build a true data culture. The goal isn't just to make your company data-driven, but to make your company data-fluent. But this cultural shift, this beautiful vision of data utopia, is also a double-edged sword. Because if you get it wrong, it can introduce a whole new set of problems. The first problem is what I call metric mayhem. When anyone can build anything, you suddenly have 10 different people calculating customer churn in 10 different ways. The sales team's churn number doesn't match marketing's, which doesn't match finances. Now, instead of making faster decisions, you're stuck in meetings arguing about whose dashboard is the right one. You've democratized the tools, but you've accidentally created data anarchy. Without a single source of truth, you don't have a data-driven culture. You have a data-divided one. The second, more insidious problem is the illusion of expertise. Just because someone can drag and drop columns in a spreadsheet-like interface doesn't mean they understand the nuances of the underlying data. They might join tables incorrectly, misinterpret a null value, or apply a filter that subtly biases their entire analysis. They produce a beautiful, convincing-looking chart that leads to a disastrous business decision, all while believing they were being data-driven. This is the nightmare scenario. Empowering people to get the wrong answers faster than ever before. You've given them a high-performance race car but no driving lessons. This is where the vision of Sigma could fall apart. And it's where the most mature companies using it succeed. They understand that you cannot have democratization without governance. The two are inseparable. Freedom requires responsibility. This isn't about locking down data again. That would defeat the whole purpose. It's about creating guardrails for the superhighway. This is what that curated data layer we talked about is truly for. The data team's role shifts. They are no longer the short-order cooks of data, fulfilling every single ticket for a new chart. Instead, they become the master chefs and architects of the data kitchen. They meticulously prepare the ingredients, the certified datasets. They ensure every table is clearly defined, every column is documented, and the complex joins are pre-built and validated. They create starter kits or templates for common analyses. Their job is to make it incredibly easy for business users to do the right thing, and much harder to do the wrong thing. A marketing manager shouldn't have to figure out how to join 7 different tables to calculate campaign ROI. They should start from a certified marketing performance dataset where that work has already been done, blessed by the data team. They can then build on top of it, slice and dice it, and explore to their heart's content, but they're building on a foundation of solid rock, not sand. Sigma has tools for this like data lineage, which lets you trace a number on a dashboard all the way back to its source column in the warehouse. It has robust permissioning and certification labels, but the tools don't create the culture. The organization has to commit to it. It requires a partnership between the central data team and the business users, a pact built on trust and shared ownership. Without that commitment to governance, Sigma isn't a solution. It's just a more powerful way to create chaos. And that brings us to the elephant in the room, the cost. Sigma computing is not cheap. It's a premium, enterprise-grade tool, and its pricing reflects that. You're paying per user, and those creator and admin licenses add up quickly. On top of that, remember Sigma itself doesn't store your data. It's running live queries against your cloud data warehouse. So every time a user explores, filters, or builds a chart, it's hitting your Snowflake or BigQuery account, which racks up compute costs. If you have hundreds of users running complex queries all day, that bill can grow substantially. So the return on investment calculation becomes critical. You can't justify Sigma by saying it's a better Tableau. You have to justify it by the transformation it enables. The argument is this: what is the cost of your current bottleneck? How much money is lost because your business teams have to wait 2 weeks for a simple report from the overwhelmed data team? What is the opportunity cost of the questions that are never even asked because the process is too cumbersome? How much are you paying for an army of data analysts to essentially act as human export and pivot table machines? When you frame it that way, the cost of Sigma can suddenly look like a bargain. If you can eliminate that bottleneck, if you can have a product manager self-serve an answer in 10 minutes instead of 10 days, if you can free up your expensive data engineers to work on truly complex problems instead of ad hoc reports, the value can be immense. But, and this is the critical but, that ROI is entirely dependent on successful adoption and strong governance. If you buy Sigma and only 10% of your employees use it, or if they use it to create metric mayhem, you've just bought a very expensive spreadsheet. So let's bring it all together. Who is Sigma actually for? And who should stay away? Sigma is for the company that is already invested in the modern data stack. You live in the cloud. You have a well-managed Snowflake, BigQuery, Redshift, or Databricks warehouse that serves as your single source of truth. You have a cultural desire to move faster and empower your domain experts, the people on the front lines of marketing, sales, product, and operations, to answer their own questions. You see the bottleneck in your central data team as a primary inhibitor to growth, and you're willing to invest in both the technology and the cultural change required to fix it. For this company, Sigma can be a game changer. It's the missing user interface for your cloud data warehouse. Who is it not for? If your company's data is scattered across a dozen legacy systems and Excel files on local hard drives, Sigma is not your solution. It's a race car and you don't even have a paved road yet. Get your data house in order first. If you're a small startup with very simple data needs, it's likely overkill. A simpler, less expensive tool will probably serve you just fine. And most importantly, if your organization has a culture of hoarding information, of rigid silos, and a fundamental lack of trust between teams, no software tool in the world is going to fix that. Sigma will only put a spotlight on your dysfunction. So we finally arrive at the ultimate question from the title. Is Sigma computing really the future of data analytics? My answer is this. It's not guaranteed that Sigma, the company, will win the entire market. The competition from giants like Microsoft, Salesforce, and Google is ferocious. But Sigma represents a powerful and, I believe, accurate blueprint of the future. The future of analytics is not about building more complex, monolithic dashboards that try to answer every question for every person. That model is breaking. The future is about creating a secure, governed, and collaborative environment where curiosity can flourish. It's about giving smart people intuitive tools to safely engage with a centralized source of truth. It's about bridging the gap between the power of SQL and the accessibility of a spreadsheet. Whether the final winner is Sigma, or a future version of Power BI that looks a lot more like Sigma, or a new challenger we haven't even seen yet, the principles that Sigma champions are the ones that are defining the next era of data. The idea of a live, query-based connection to the cloud warehouse, the spreadsheet interface as the paradigm for exploration, and the deep emphasis on federated governance. This is the direction the entire industry is moving. Sigma just got there first and with the most conviction. In the end, the hype around Sigma isn't really about the technology itself. It's about the promise of what that technology can unlock. A state of data fluency. Not just being data-driven where a few experts provide directions, but being data fluent, where everyone in the organization can speak the language of data themselves. They can read it, write with it, and argue with it. The real question this forces us to ask is not about software. It's about our organizations. Are we structured for curiosity? Are we willing to build the trust and governance required to empower our people? Because the future of data analytics isn't a tool you can buy. It's a culture you have to build. Sigma might just be one of the best catalysts we have to start that conversation.